that nurse took her own life. Because that was a data breach, if you think about it. People's lives are at stake.
This week on Dumb Ways to Get Hacked, we are joined by the unsung hero of cyber, Director of Not a Standard, Emily Holyoake.
Someone's physical address is the only thing that stops them from physical danger. I actually said one day in a job interview, I don't know how computers work. And I got the job.
If you strip away the keyboard, hacking is just the modern street hustle. It's just someone lying to you. Legally, you can lie on the internet. Just lie.
Sit on the floor. That's what's going to help. Humans are obviously the weakest link when it comes to security, but they're our greatest asset. It's not if, it's when. Do you know how you're actually going to fix it? Do what makes your brain happy.
Emily, your LinkedIn says director. Your award nomination says unsung hero. But looking at what you're building with Not a Standard, your vibe says, I'm just here to cause a bit of trouble in the world, obsessed with boxes and labels. So who is Emily Holyoake?
I wouldn't say I'm here to cause trouble, but there is definitely a sprinkling of chaos going on. I guess Not a Standard came about because I was equally obsessed with not having a label on anything, because in cyber and in security and in the corporate world and government, we all have to stick everything in this box of what it is that we want things to look like and how it all works. But most of the time, it doesn't actually really work. And it's when you have such an expectation on what things should look like, you missed out on everything that's going on around you. And in all of the work that I've done, it's all being focused around, well, what are all these other concepts and methodologies and ways of doing things that we can lean upon to do our jobs better? And what can we learn from spycraft and cyber and criminology and psychology to be better analysts and better at security? And so that's kind of how Not a Standard came about, because it's very much about doing things differently, because the way that we've been doing things a lot of the time just doesn't really work.
Tell me more about Not a Standard.
So Not a Standard, we focus on human factors security, and that term gets thrown around a lot, and we kind of associate it with like physical security and PRSEC. But my co-founder and good friend, Ben Menzies, he puts it really beautifully and says every attack begins and ends with a human, or ends with a person. So that's what we focus on. And I think even as we talk about how AI is going to take over the world and we're going to be a passwordless society, that's not going to stop people from hurting one another. And that's not going to stop, like the Anthropic attack or hack that happened not too long ago was because Claude got socially engineered into doing something. Like, that's still a human, and that data and all of that came from a human brain. And so that's what we focus on. And I guess it was a kind of a chicken and egg situation, because what I know is what we call SAFE. And SAFE is about understanding what harm looks like. So what is abuse, exploitation, and neglect? And how does that happen? And why does that happen? And how is it able to continue to happen? And it's very much about taking what we know around how the world works in society and spycraft and counterterrorism, and then using those to solve really big issues. So it's something that's hopefully going to one day make us redundant, and we're never going to need to exist because we've done a good enough job of solving the problem for the most part. But it's very much around taking an unconventional approach to something that we have these very strict and rigid rules around, and trying to solve the same problems.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I deal with cyber with all types of businesses, small, medium, large. I strongly believe the human factor is number one. And I've had many guests who have said human firewall is the best firewall. Now, I love what you guys are doing at Not a Standard. We've got a special announcement. For all our listeners, we're actually launching our Women in Cyber series, and this is our first podcast, and Emily and I will be co-hosting with many awesome women in the cyber industry. Usually this is, where we would crack open cupcakes, talk about empowerment, But you told me the reality. Your first industry event, you drove there, you parked your car, and you had a full-blown panic attack in the car park. You almost didn't walk in because you were terrified of, and I quote, fluffy girl community shit. Now, why does a room full of polite networking scare you more than a Russian hacker?
That first networking event, I remember just going, oh my God, I'm so scared, because it was this 50-50 thing of the whole polite niceness, pink fluffy. It's not my jam. Like I can't do it. And I will be so honest with someone almost to a fault. And at the same time, like I was walking into a room that was going to be full of like really cool, incredible women who like I already knew were doing really cool stuff based on what I was told from who I was invited by. And I was, oh my God, this is going terrifying. Who am I? Like I'd never been to this event before. It was like my first kind of introduction to Canberra's cyber scene sort of thing. And I just went, no, I don't want to. I just don't want to. But I guess I'm so glad that I was wrong, because that was, again, my first introduction, and I never left. And there's so many people that were there on that first day that I'm still friends with and I still catch up with. And we go out for dinner, and we I want someone that was there on that day. The first time we actually spoke face to face, we're on the phone for 6 hours just talking about what was going on in the world. And there was this camaraderie and friendship that I've not seen in any other industry. And it might be in part because there's not so few women in the industry. I mean, it's something like 17%, which is kind of not fair and not cool, but you understand it when you work it. But also, it's really hard. Like, we work in security. Our job is a 24/7 job. You want to find people that you work with, and you want those women to be honest, because femininity is not soft. Like, women have babies. Like, we do so many incredible, tough stuff, but the perception is that it's soft and fluffy and polite. And I'm like, no, we're not. Stick us in a room together. We're not. And I'm so glad that I was wrong. And I'm so glad that I stuck around. And that was the first of so many events that I went to after that. And I think it's just getting over that perception of what things are going to look like and realizing that you're going to be in a room full of people who just want to see you succeed. Yeah.
Now, on that topick, you didn't just walk in the room alone, right? You were actually dragged in by your mentor, Jacob Zverina. I think that's how I said,
Yes.
I said that, right? Jacob, forgive me if I didn't. What I admire is he didn't give you a warm hug. He didn't give you a pep talk. He basically just said, get in. Now, for all the blokes that are listening who want to be an ally or mentor, is that the secret? Stop trying to save women. Just open the bloody door.
Yeah, and then move out of the way. Open the door, let us walk through it. We don't need someone to hold our hands. Like I said, like, women do tough stuff. We're not fragile. We can hold our own. What we need is someone who is in the room that we're not allowed to be in to say, hang on a second, this person over here is doing incredible things. And the gender shouldn't come into it. No one's gender should come into it. But the reality is that it's such a big thing, especially in an industry that's dominated by men and dominated by an older generation of men. And that's not to say that they're not allies and they're not supportive and encouraging. It's just a different world that we live in. And I guess that's why organizations such as WESIS and AWSN are so important, and going to those networking events that are full of women are so important, because we build that community. But at the same time, yeah, we absolutely need men in the room with us. Like, those communities are not closed to men. And I think, like, Jay-Z is the perfect example of that, because I don't get pep talks. I get, just go. Emily, just do it. Shut up. Move over, hurry up. And even as if someone was looking for a mentor, like, you don't want someone who's going to be soft on you. You want someone who's going to challenge you. You want someone who rewards when you actually do the hard thing. But otherwise, you want someone who's going to speak your name when you're not in the room, challenge you, to do better and be better and ultimately be someone who you can rely upon. And I got really lucky in that Jay-Z and I've been friends for years now, but for the most part, he's just always been the person that's backed me. Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? It makes me think of my last podcast that Kyle Waters was saying it's a good mentor is like a relationship in Star Wars where you've got the Jedi Master and you got the Padawan, but what they're teaching you effectively is not just their knowledge, but the knowledge that's been passed down. And it means you continue on that path. It doesn't matter of your gender. It doesn't matter or any of that makes, no difference, right? And the reality of what we face is very different. Now, you've said, however, this is one thing I love continuing on our conversation, that with your best mates in cyber, your network, you don't talk cyber. You talk sewing, you talk memes, and apparently, according to your friends, you talk a lot of trash. So is the secret to surviving a 24-hour threat landscape actually just having a life? Tell me about the village.
It is the most important part. Like it carries on from everything that was said so far. Is humans are obviously the weakest link when it comes to security, but they're our greatest asset. And those communities and those networking events are so important. And mentorship and having someone who has your back is so important. And it's just like any relationship or any friendship, right? Like there are days when you just want to complain about whatever dumb thing that somebody did somewhere. And at the same time, you need someone who understands where you're coming from and understands why you're frustrated, but then you can talk about something completely different. And it's like any kind of friendship, right? I think the village is so important just in life in general. Like you can't do everything alone. Humans are social creatures. We need to have community and we need to have people that we can connect with. And our jobs can be really high stakes. There's potentially lives at risk when things don't work or when things go awry, when there's a data breach. And it's not always seen that way because we're not on the front lines. We're not doctors or nurses or on the front lines of security and spies and all of that sort of stuff. But our jobs are still really important to people and making sure that things work. And so we want people who understand why we're so burnt out. Unfortunately, it's just part of it. But at the same time, you're going to things with people and you're getting to know people and you find that you have common interests. And so you stop talking about work, but you have this commonality with them and you have someone who can back you and who's in the room for you as well. And you're talking about all this other stuff that is what lights you up and keeps you going when things are tough. And like you and I, the first time we chatted, within about 5 minutes, we're comparing motorbikes. And that's the kind of thing. And it's sure cybersecurity is what brought us here, but there's so much more that we could talk about other than that. Jay-Z and I, perfect example. Like we are hiking. Like we don't talk about work because we always disagree on everything. But at the same time, you don't need to climb a mountain because half the time you're so exhausted that you don't want to speak anyway. And like Karen, for example, she loves sewing. Everything she does, she's made herself when she's talking somewhere. And it's so nice to be able to see what someone's doing on the side and even seeing and watching someone go through some other kind of struggle, but then seeing them on stage in Parliament House and going, I'm so proud of you. And like, I remember saying to Fred one day, I was like, do you know how proud your mom and dad would be of you right now? And they went, oh, no. And I was like, no, like really? Well, one, that speech was incredible. Secondly, I know what a crap time you've had lately. And it's kind of that special kind of, you're stuck in it together. So you may as well make the most of it as well.
I love that. I love the whole, as you said, the idea of the village is that humans are species that want to be social together as one. And I think it's something that comes still in our brains as far as we've come from our ancestors, that if you're in a village, you survive, or in your tribe, you survive.
Yeah.
If you're not, then the chances of living becomes less. So somehow that's still ingrained in us. But as you said, I think that relationship with the right people makes all the difference to how you are in life, and put everything else aside.
Yeah.
It really works well.
But that's such a sour thing too, right? We always say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And so many of the jobs that we cover about conversations like this conversation came about because of our own villages and people that know us and want to go talk to this person. You know, they're doing something really cool. Oh, I really want to show you this. And what happened last year or the year before, the big CrowdStrike thing outage, like so many competing organizations were working together to solve this because that's what we do. We are a collective, like the entire industry for the most part, and the people that want to be here and who see it as a 24/7 job are here to work with one another because it's the same common goal, right? To beat the bad guy. We're all in it together. This is what I'm trying to say.
That's definitely true. Like I specifically remember when that happened.
Yeah.
And we were involved as a third party to help a bigger business.
Yeah.
And they were working directly with a big company, no names here. They were working with CrowdStrike support saying, reset your computer or do this or do that. And, you know, my business partner he figured it out and he got that part of the whole computers up and running. And the first thing he did was call and say, oh, by the way, this is what I've done and it's working. Now, yeah, we could have pretended to be heroes or this or that, but what's the purpose? The idea is, one of the things you deal with it every day is that if we share, as you said, then at the end of the day, it means collectively we grow together. And the point is the customer. It's not about us. Let's get the customer going. And then you and I can debate till the cows come home about what was right and what was wrong. Or let's just work as, you know, you said the village. If we support each other, because I'm good at one thing that's maybe better than what you're good at, well, why wouldn't you utilize that? Have me come and help you with that and vice versa. So love it. Love the whole idea of the village when it comes personal and business and everything else.
Yeah.
Now, you famously said in an interview, I don't know how computers work. If I said that at a job interview, security would have probably escorted me out of the building. But you put it on your website. Is it just you being modest, or is that actually your secret weapon?
It's both, and probably because I don't know how computers work. I actually said one day in a job interview, and I got the job, I don't know how computers work. And they went, that's fine. And honestly, like that was the best interview I've ever done, like job interview I've ever done. But yeah, like I think there is kind of it. I'm not going to debate that stereotypes around women are bad and that the stereotype of women in security is that we don't know how computers work. And especially a woman in security that has always worked in GRC, everyone just presumes immediately that I don't know how computers work. And for a long time, I didn't. I came into this industry with zero technical background at all. Like I could fix stuff. I know how to Google stuff and fix things for the most part, but that was not what got me here. I am here because I love to know how people think. I love to know what drives them, what makes them want to do things. I'm here because I love understanding social engineering and spycraft and intelligence. Like that's my jam. And that's why I wanted to be in GRC, because I see how people misunderstand and kind of downplay risk or overplay risk. And I'm like, whoa, just chill. Let's think this through. And how systems are weaponized, because cyber or not, the system is a system. It's all essentially the same. And if you can understand that and understand the concepts of what makes a system, you can figure out everything else that's in between. And I think that's pretty much always been the case where whatever I've done. At the same time, being an auditor at times, turning around and playing dumb is not going to lie, a pretty effective way to get someone to start telling you about how things actually work. I'm not going to lie, I've done that a lot and really played on I'm just a girl, like, I don't know how computers work, which is bad. That's setting back women's liberation by 50 years. Like, I own that completely. But so long as that is being used against me, I'm going to take advantage of it as well, just as much. Because, like, why not? You're going to be silly? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And it's not failed me yet.
I love that. You know, and let me put it out there 100%. I even do that. And it's playing the right cards at the right time. And it's as your main goal here is it's the psychology behind it. So what difference does it make whether I know it or not? If I'm playing that card at the right time against that person, let's see if they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. And I love the fact that you've made it crystal clear. It's never about putting someone down, male, female, whoever it is. It's about doing the right thing. And, you know, at times that means you have to be a bit harder than normal. If that person cries, so be it. But otherwise, it's a learning lesson. And if we don't learn, we stick to our comfort zone, and that's what hackers rely on. And that's why what you're doing with everything that you're doing, I think with the psychology part of things, is amazing. And that makes a lot of sense. So the next part, I guess, is we spend billions on firewalls, right? We treat the hardware like it's the crown jewels or something, 40NAP, Unify, all these other bits and pieces. But you argue the glitch isn't the silicon, it's the meat sack sitting in the chair. So what is the biggest bug in the human brain, I guess, that hackers are actually exploiting right now?
Everybody has a desire for control. Every single thing, regardless of what it is, regardless of who you are or what you're doing, whether you're a hacker or not, everybody to some degree wants control or to perceive that they are in control. And that's exactly what hackers are going against. They are, and it's not always about your control, it's about where you think that you're lacking control. So things like social engineering, they play on people's need to be the hero. And I have a lot of examples of that. I'm not going to tell you what jobs I've done in the past, but it was about, in the example of before around, I don't know how computers work. That's someone that's playing on someone else's need for control and need to know everything, right? I'm weaponizing that vulnerability by saying, I don't know, I need you to tell me or to one up me on you being better than I am. And that's exactly what hackers are doing. And it's the same with systems. If you look at like a technical system, it's the system perceives that this is how they get control, or we say that this is security, so this is control. They're finding where those gaps are and making their way through the system. And it's the same way with people. It's social engineering. It goes back to like personal accountability. When you can see for yourself what your weaknesses are, like with like real clear-eyed understanding that you're not perfect, understanding that you have your own faults and being aware of those, you can start to see how people take advantage of that. You can start to see your own weaknesses and you can start to see where you give in. And like the same thing for technicals, like for a computer system, right? We're looking for, all right, we're like on the surface, it looks pretty good. But once we start digging, we start to find things, and having that level of system awareness, discovery, and all of that is the same as having self-awareness. And once we have self-awareness, then we can actually better protect our digital systems as well, because we're not going, oh, I know everything. I know it's secure. I'm like, but do you really? Like, really? And you can tell who has the self-awareness and that is able to honestly say, I don't know the answer to that, or I'm not 100%. And they're the people that are going to fix it. And they're the people that are going to have the most secure systems. And they're the people that are going to have staff who aren't victim to business email compromise and scams and spam and all of that sort of stuff, because they're honest about where their limitations lie. And then they can set better controls in order to protect those systems better.
Definitely. And I put that in the people that we deal with. There's two types of clients usually in that camp. One is yeah, she'll be right, mate. I've been doing this for 30 years and nothing's ever gone wrong. Why should I change now? Why should I do? And I get, look, everything we do involves money, and I get that. It's shit, but it is what it is. Hackers don't care, right? But that's the ego side speaking. It's saying, this has never happened. We don't click on this. And I'll always say it. Famous last words, pal. Sure, no worries, mate. You know better than me. I mean, you know, it's not what I do for a living, whatever.
Exactly right. It's not if, it's when. Like, you have to accept that it's inevitable. It's just, are you prepared? Do you know how it can happen? And do you know how you're actually going to fix it? Like, really?
And then you've got the awesome clients or people, as you said, who are like, you know what? I don't know and then understand, or I'm not going to even pretend to understand,
Mm.
but I just want to make sure works. I know how to do my job right. So I need you to make sure we are prepared the best we can be prepared for this situation. And they accept it, and they're like, you, especially when they get audited, are we doing this? Yep. Okay, good. Or can we do this now? I know I said no in the past or whatever it is, but I understand that this is a requirement for me to keep my license or whatever it is. So definitely.
Yeah. Agreed.
Now, you mentioned in conversation we've had that once you worked in a place where the boss, right, was mocking a colleague for sitting on the floor when they were overwhelmed. Now, most corporate types see and think that's a HR issue. You see that and you think superpower. Why is the brain that needs to sit on the floor the exact same brain that can save your company?
It's very much what I said before. Someone who is self-aware of their limitations is the person who's going to be able to fix it and know what to do when things go wrong. That example sucked so much, but I wouldn't be here if that hadn't bothered me so much. And that was literally like the first conversation, like the first conference talk I did was at CyberCon back in 2023. And I talked about the power of neurodiversity and cybersecurity. And I talked about making it safe for people to sit on the floor. Like I literally said that because of this experience that I had, because that person was so self-aware of their limitations and what they needed for themselves in order to function, that they knew that sitting on the floor, which, as far as corporate life goes, is not acceptable, but they knew that they're not hurting anybody by doing that. They're not getting in the way. They're not doing anything that could hurt themselves or hurt anyone around them, but they knew that's what they needed to do when things were stressful. I don't know whether you'd prefer someone who did that and didn't look conventional versus someone who's sitting in their chair sweating and burnt out and then takes 6 weeks stress leave. Like I'm pretty sure I would prefer the person that sat on the floor instead of just stressing about the whole thing. And kind of it goes back to ego versus, and we could go down the root path of ego versus intuition. Intuition is what you know, and it's not the ego part, which is the mask that kind of sits on top of that and dictates how, you should act based on what's going on around you. It's Dabrowski's positive disintegration. The more you move away from what it is that society wants you to do and start acting from a place of truth and honesty and not what people tell you how things should work, is where you actually start to see results and you are able to address things in your own life and show up more fully and be a better person and be way less stressed as well, because it does. Like in that situation, you're stressed. We're in the middle of P2 that's been going on for the past 3 days. Like, God, sit on the floor if that's what's going to help. And like that same person, like I remember we had a 3-day tabletop exercise. It was not a tabletop exercise. And I was at her house literally sitting in her cupboard because that was the comfiest place to sit. I was like, she's got a pile of donuts in there. I'm going to sit on top of all of them. And there's this picture of me sitting there with my laptop doing that because like I knew that was the place that I needed to be in order to be the most effective. And this is not neurodivergent people all the time. And it's not to say that people who can't do this or don't do this, but there is something about when the world is kind of set up to see you fail in a way, you need to find ways to cope. You need to find ways to support yourself and show up as fully as you can, because it sucks when you're not. And you need to have self-awareness in order to be able to know how to interact with other people. Yeah, at a fundamental level, like autism, they say we can't communicate. And it's not that at all. It's just, we're not running on autopilot. We have to learn things, which means we have to learn how we engage with people and how we look after ourselves as well, because it can be like super exhausting. And at the same time, that means you're better at pattern recognition. You're better at spotting things that other people don't, because you're not doing things the same way You can't follow a system that is set up to watch you fail. You have to work out how you integrate with that system and do the best that you can. And yeah, sitting on the floor, if that's what helps regulate you, and there's actual like science behind why that works and it's grounding, so do it. It's not hurting anybody. So just do what makes your brain happy.
That's right. So for anyone listening out there in any workplace, take that on board. That's great, priceless advice.
Yeah.
Now, let's get to the fun spycraft stuff. If you strip away the keyboard, hacking is just the modern street hustle, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
It's not the Matrix. Let's be clear on that, right? So if you see the white rabbit, don't follow it, people. Yeah, it's just someone lying to you. How does the con actually work?
It's literally that simple. Like I said before, if we strip it all back to control, everybody wants control or perceive that they're in control. And I say it's either gaining control, maintaining control, or regaining control. It's one of three things, and we all want it. I want it, you want it, every person on earth wants it. That's the reason why we're alive, is there's some drive in order to have control over what's going on around us. And that's how we like get promotions and all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes to the con, it is someone who is able to identify where you perceive you have control and where you perceive you don't have control. And they're either exploiting it, which is taking advantage of where you perceive control and benefiting from that, or it's harm or abuse or neglect, which is taking advantage of those vulnerabilities that you have. It's the same thing, whether it's in a workplace, in an interpersonal relationship, whether it's a computer system or a technical system. It is the exact same thing over and over again, and it works the exact same way. It is, we talk about how, people are so unique and so special, and nothing that we talk about contested knowledge domains. You can't think about a human the same way that you think about a computer system. And a human built that computer system. So yeah, there's more nodes, sure. There's more connections, sure. But at the same time, a system is still a system. And so if you can identify what the strengths and the vulnerabilities of that system are, then you can exploit them. And it's why there's a link between psychology, criminology, cybersecurity, intelligence, spycraft, counterterrorism, terrorism, even behavioral economics, and how like the stock market works, and how you raise children, and how you like talk to people who are in a crisis. They are all the exact same thing, just on a different macro level. Biology is another example of that. The same systems that work in physics and between protons and quantum entanglement work in biological systems. And they're even saying the quantum entanglement can work in human brains. So why is it then that we have to have a completely separate framework for a human as to every other system on Earth when we're not that special? And so, yeah, it's really as simple as that. And it goes back to, are you aware of your own weaknesses and of your own vulnerabilities? If yes, then you know how to deal with them. But if you can't see something, you can't do anything about it.
That's perfectly said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Everything you answered, the last 3-4 answers, put them together, and you've answered everything. Thanks for the interview. See you later.
Yes.
Now it makes sense. For anyone listening, coin's about to drop for you if it hasn't already. That's why algorithms work so well, because everything is an algorithm, and the idea is that we created that algorithm. The algorithm is not doing anything on its own. It's just recognizing the pattern, recognizing your strengths, your weaknesses. And I wouldn't argue like social media is trying to use that against you for bad, but it's basically feeding you what it thinks you want. And it's based on what it's recognized. So that's how hackers work, right?
Yep.
Smart.
It's
Love it.
that. When people go, they talk about the work that we do. And I go, and this is not to say that I'm amazing or we're doing incredible things or blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, we're doing something that's really novel. But I'm like, all I'm doing is taking criminology and psychology and spycraft and cybersecurity and all these concepts that already exist and going, I'm going to apply them to the one thing that everyone tells me that I can't apply it to. And I'm going to prove to you that it works because it does work, because we've been doing it for thousands of years. It's nothing special. It's just the same thing in a different system.
Yeah. It's like we forget and we need to be reminded, and then we're back and then we forget.
Yeah, literally. A cycle, another system.
Absolutely. Now, you've seen the tricks, you've seen the victims, and you've seen the criminals, right? If you could sit with every CEO in Australia and tell them one hard truth that they're ignoring, what is it?
The one thing I wish CEOs could really see, and it goes into if they could ask, when you ask me if there was one hack that I wish every person could experience, it would be that I would want a CEO to see what is at stake. Because we talk about data breaches and how it's just data, like it's just PII. And they go, oh, it just means that you're going to get more ads or you're going to get more spam and all that sort of stuff. When in reality, people's lives are at stake. And there are people who have died because of data breaches, either incidentally or directly. A terrible example of that is someone in the royal family had a baby, and these two radio hosts called up, pretended to be the royal family, spoke to this nurse, and the nurse put them through. That nurse took her own life because that was a data breach, if you think about it. And that gives me goosebumps every time I think about it, because it was something that was so simple, and they potentially put someone's life at risk, so they took their own life. And there are other examples of systems being weaponized. And I talk about this a lot, they have your address. What about it? And you're like, no, you don't understand, because quite often someone's physical address is the only thing that stops them from physical danger. Why else would we have things like witness protection programs? It's not just against hardened criminals. It is the reason why domestic violence orders and apprehended violence orders all exist, because you need to protect that person's data. And I don't think that CEOs or really anyone really kind of thinks about what's at stake. And cyber is just one vector of something that we've been doing for hundreds of years, right? Like, it's still a data breach, a Trojan, still a data breach, whether that's a computer Trojan or a physical horse in ancient Greece. They're still taking advantage of somebody. And I don't think that anyone in any kind of leadership position really sees that, because they see the financial value potentially of having that information without considering what happens if it gets into the wrong person's hands.
And I think if I had the choice, it would be the home environment. When people realize that this is actually impacting them at home, they care a lot more suddenly about the workplace. And it comes down to the simple strategy of parenting. Parents sharenting is the term we use, as you know. Yesterday, school started. All of a sudden, there's photos of that first day of school, uniform, possibly even drop off. And if I was connected to someone and I shared that, and that person, someone else was connected, and I've got that photo has information in there about where that photo was taken, geolocation. They've taken a photo of a school badge. So all of a sudden this person knows where this child goes to school, and we can not that we want to, but we can imagine what can come from that. So when someone says, so what if I took a photo of my child and posted it on the first day of school? Celebrate your kid. Absolutely. Take photos, but does it have to be shared in that platform, or do we have to share 400 photos of that? You know what I mean? I read in one of your blogs about when someone's got like an AVO or an order against someone, but that same person is also making themselves vulnerable because now they've shared photos of their child at this new school that they're going to. Now, I'm imagining if the partner suddenly tricks a friend to say, hey, I can't even see my kids on the first day, man. If there's any photos, can you share it with me? Yes, sure, mate. Here you go. All of a sudden, there's your vulnerability, right? That's human psychology. But again, this applies to IT and cyber, and that's how hackers use this against you,
The
right?
same. It's exactly the same thing. It's just a different mechanism and a different domain. Like it's a difference between a mobile exploit and a desktop exploit. Like it's the same thing, and people just don't seem to realize what's at stake because it's not physical or tangible. I can't even begin to explain how many times I've seen someone just want to do the right thing or what they think is the right thing at the time. And that's not to say don't do anything or don't help people or don't share information, but being cognizant of what that information sharing could potentially mean as well. We always want convenience. We always want an example of this. That terrible example really was that community cricket. All the cricket matches are publicly available everywhere, which is great, right? Because you want to know where to go and pick your kid. If you have to rely on like one piece of paper, I'm terrible. I lose it. Go to the bin. I'm never going to hold on to it. But what happened was community cricket information was shared. There was apprehended violence or a DVO or something between the two parents. And what had happened was the father, and this is not a gender thing, this is just what happened was the father saw where the son was playing cricket and he went there and he murdered his son because that information was made convenient for everybody else, but it wasn't considered what sharing that information meant. And like I worked at Cricket Australia, I love those guys, I love that team. And that was one of the things that we always pressed because we made apps and we shared information with people, but it was always in the back of our minds. And we talked about this, even we did tabletop exercises across like the entire tech division and we encourage everyone to participate. But as always, what's the worst possible thing that could happen with this information if we released it? What's the worst thing that could happen if we collected this data? Do we actually really need it or do we want it because it's convenient? And that's the kind of thing that I keep kind of trying to explain to people is, do you actually really need it or do you just want it?
The other advice on that point would be where legally you can lie on the internet. Just lie.
Yeah.
Like, why does my hairdresser need my address?
Yeah. If I could have everyone have one thing, it would be curiosity. Like, be more curious about what's going on. Like, you need to be curious just to exist. Like, to just survive bear attacks and dinosaur attacks and all of that and know what that spooky sound is in the back of your mind. Like, you need to have curiosity and we need to have more of it and we need to have it so that we can question systems when they're not working and find new ways of doing it, because that's the antithesis of fear, right? Like you sure you can be scared while being curious, but you have to bury that fear a little bit in order to be curious and, dare I say it, fuck around and find out. If we could just have people not be so scared of life, then we wouldn't have nearly the same amount of vulnerabilities that we would have. And also it would make life a whole lot nicer as well if people were not ashamed of doing things. And we probably wouldn't have the same amount of problems that we have in the world. So definitely see it.